I've been having a look at the tweets by Muslims in particular. So this is one by Abdul Wahid of Hizb ut-Tahrir. I'll put it in the chat in case anybody is interested. Oh, by the way, I got a strike on my main channel for a 2021 video mentioning Trump. Somebody was telling me today about there being people on YouTube who basically go through the videos of people they don't like in order to keep them low and small. I'm going to interpret that as having somehow made a name for myself so that I am being watched because I'm big enough to be for people to want to cut me down a size or two. But it's interesting about the prohibition against mentioning the election. I think a lot of people just can't stop talking about it, even though technically it would attract a strike. And there are people who don't quite believe that it would attract a strike, and so they do it. Perhaps people have a kind of cognitive dissonance about the whole thing. On the one hand, are warned that they will get a strike, and on the other hand, or maybe they think they can get around it by saying it in a certain way, thinking that that would be enough. And getting a strike anyway. I know that Duran and Peter Lebel was saying, we're not going to talk about it, we're just not going to talk about it, because even talking about it means somehow attracting the unwelcome attention of these censors. But I know a lot of people have been removed. Does it matter? Do people go over old stuff? There's always so much more content being produced, and it doesn't. I think in the end that matters as long as people have an idea of what you're going to say. So as far as what I'm going to say on Muslim matters is concerned is this tweet by Abdul Wahid of Hizb ut-Tahrir about something Yasser Khadib was saying, and it's actually on Facebook, and I guess those of you who are interested might want to have a look at it. I've had a look at it. It's quite a long post. And it's about talking about the caliphate. And this is another subject about, I suppose, obsessives. You want to talk about something, people tell you, well, people say it's not going to happen, and you should spend your time and energy doing something else. But anyway, for Muslims who are obsessed with the caliphate, they can't help themselves and talk about it, and other Muslims kind of roll their eyes and are saying, come on, just get over it. It's not going to happen in your lifetime, so just don't make a fool of yourself and keep talking about it. But what is this caliphate thing? A caliph is a leader of a republic. I asked once, years ago, and I think this was on, I forget, what platform it was, but it wasn't YouTube, and it was Anjem Chowdhury. Um, it's one of those chat channels. It wasn't Clubhouse, but something before that, and I forget the name of it. But anyway, it was that, and I asked him if a caliph was a dictator, and he said no, 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 no. And but I don't believe him, and I think he means a constitutional dictator. Is there anything wrong in having a dictator? Obviously, you don't want it. You don't want a absolute dictator who will throw people in dungeons and have them executed and that sort of thing. So obviously, we don't want an absolute dictator, in the same way that we don't want an absolute monarch, because then the powers of this person would be unlimited, and the alternative would be to have a constitutional dictator, and so the constitutional dictator would be a dictator that governs according to Quranic principles. And the idea is that there will be enough people in the republic to notice if the dictator, the constitutional dictator, is not governing according to the principles of the Quran, whereupon they can instantly remove that person. So he's got to be pretty bad, I think. I imagine in most cases you break a few of the rules of the Quran, and people pretend not to notice and try to rationalize it and tell themselves it doesn't matter. But if you keep pushing the boundaries, then eventually people will notice, and if things are going wrong, they will overthrow you. I haven't studied the fall of the Ottoman Empire. I did enough European history to know that it was a weak man of the East, and basically the great powers were dismantling it and taking it apart, with Russia taking a slice of it, and everybody else fighting over it in the Crimean War. So what caused the weakness of the Ottoman Empire? I suppose it was a combination of the marine empire of the Europeans and the corruption of the domestic governance, the military governance of the Ottoman Empire. And I suppose its fall will be as the reasons for its fall will be as manifold as the decline and fall of the Roman Empire by Gibbon. The important thing to note is that it is the last caliphate. But we also have to remember that the caliph had a harem. Actually, I have to check this, because this is, just one of the things that tell me the reason why these Muslims are not the big shots that they were, is because they broke their own rules. And obviously, if you have a harem, you are not obeying the 4 wives max rule. And I am saying that all empires fall when they break their own rules of success. And this means that they all become a victim of their own success, because when you are right at the top, you don't think you will ever be beaten, and you think you can break a few rules, and then you break a few more and a few more, until you discover to your horror that you are degenerate. And then your character will be so corrupted by that time that you just won't be able to recognize the truth for what it is, and you will deny it and punish anyone who speaks it. And this means you will get less and less of it until you fall over and die. I mean, that is the usual story of the fall of empires, I would say. And therefore, we should understand that corruption is ignoring truth. And this, I'm afraid, is happening all over. There are so many people who cannot bring themselves to admit the truth. They can only look at it for just so long before they turn away. But sometimes, to solve a problem, you have to look at it full on for quite a while before you work out what the problem is. So this is the answer I would give to you if you ask me. Well, if Islam is so great, why isn't the Islam why isn't the Ummah great? And I'm saying they broke their rules. And the problem with fallen empires is that before they rise again, there will be a lot of internal dislocation and civil war and invasion. It all happened to China. But before it rights itself, and it would be nice to be able to avoid, all this horrible stuff of, degeneracy and invasion and civil war, and it would help if people were more amenable to reason and truth and treated it with greater respect rather than something to be covered up. So for the Muslims who were successful a few centuries ago, well, more than a few centuries ago, this is something to bear in mind, because if you look at the fall of the Western Empire, once upon a time, people were very, they had a strict regard for truth, and they respected the institutions of marriage and the family, and then they let their hair down and everything hang out, and now they can't remember a time when they were sober and strict and proper and doing all the things that they should be doing. And now they are suffering from dementia, and unfortunately, when you are suffering from dementia, you can't think your way around simple problems. And this is a shame, because the problem is simple. If I know the answer, then the problem is simple. And you're going to ask me why don't more people listen to me? And then the answer is simple. They don't listen to me because they don't like my idea, and they want to suppress my ideas and ignore me and label me and demonize me and lower me in status and pretend I'm not worth listening to. And this includes the Muslims themselves, who can't face the fact that they got it so wrong and are still getting it wrong and aren't going about things in the right way, in my opinion. I understand that people will say, who am I to be telling all, these ancient civilizations what to do? And I'm saying, well, I'm nobody at all, but you would have thought that if you're so clever, you're going to engage with me on the subject. And they can't, and they won't, and, they do the usual thing of being in their hug box and their echo chamber and not talking to anyone outside it. This isn't how I operate, of course. I welcome new people. I really make a point of listening to what they have to say in case they have something interesting to say. And so I find that their ways of dealing with problems are very unimaginative and really, more group hug sessions, which I guess everybody does, the Jews, the Christians, the Muslims. And there is no diversity of opinion. I know diversity has been scorned by people who want a more purist approach to politics, but I think we need opposition just to keep the dialogue going and interesting to any third party observer. So I guess I could post Abdul Wahid's Facebook post about what he thought was going on. Yes, I've got another strike. And yes, I had a girlfriend telling me that she heard that there were people on YouTube who, go through the accounts of people they don't like to give them strikes. And I can well believe that, because the censorship is pretty ridiculous. But one of the reasons why I timestamp my streams is that it's my own form of note taking. So, should my stream go, I have, a condensed version of what I said, timestamped. So I can, easily repeat it somewhere else on a new account, or, whatever. But it's not a big deal. I have so much that I want to say anyway. So basically what I'm saying is that the Muslims haven't really got the right idea at all. They're actually very boring, going on about Palestine. Yes, I am complaining that they're not giving secular Quranism the attention that I think it deserves. And okay, fair enough, if you've always been going on about the caliphate. And I was going to finish talking about the subject by saying, well, what is a caliphate and what is an emirate? So I think what happens is that you have the rightly guided caliphs. There are three of them, the Rashidun, and then the others who are, well, a bit not quite right. So I was going to look at the Ottoman Emperor and Harib. And if he did, then it sort of, it's just a sign that your days are numbered, and this proved to be true of the Emperor of China, and also true of the Ottoman imperial harem. So if you drown yourself in luxury, then, well, you're going to end up drowned. And this isn't something that is confined to Muslims. We know what happened to King Solomon, and he was supposed to be the wisest of Jewish kings, and he still got it wrong. And this perfectly shows that Jews are not perfect, and not even the wisest of all the kings of Israel. So he got it wrong. He spent too much time with his harem. He didn't properly train his son how to be king, and he split the kingdom in two. His son did, after Solomon died. So don't have an imperial harem, because I suppose the temptation is that you will spend too much time in your imperial harem, and you won't be doing the things you ought to be doing as a caliph. And anyway, if The fact that you have a harem is actually reason enough to get rid of you, right? Because the Quran says you can only have up to 4 wives, and if you have an imperial harem, well, you've obviously exceeded the number of, of wives you're allowed to have. Let's have a little read of the imperial harem. The imperial harem of the Ottoman Empire was an Ottoman sultan's harem composed of the wives, servants, both female slaves and eunuchs, female relatives, and the sultan's concubines, occupying a secluded portion of the Ottoman imperial household. The institution played an important social function within the Ottoman court and wielded considerable political authority in Ottoman affairs, especially during the long period known as the Sultanate of Women. The Sultanate of Women was a period when wives and mothers of the sultans of the Ottoman Empire exerted extraordinary political influence. So there was your feminism in the Ottoman Empire. Multiple historians claim that the Sultan was frequently lobbied by harem members of different ethnic or religious backgrounds to influence the geography of the Ottoman wars of conquest. The utmost authority in the imperial harem, the Velid Sultan ruled over the other women in the household. The consorts of the Sultan were normally of slave origin, and thus were also his mother, the Velid Sultan. I'm not quite sure. Okay, the Velid. What does that mean? The Velid Sultan was a title held by the legal mother of a ruling sultan of the Ottoman Empire. It's like a dowager empress, I suppose. Okay, so I'm afraid, this was it, too much female influence in the Ottoman Empire, and that was the end of it. I think you'll probably be interested in the harem as a social and political institution, which I'll read out for you. So come on, Hizbut Tahrir, just get real and stop talking about the caliphate, because really, we have to think of how what we're going to call ourselves. Just assuming that the West decide to all collectively embrace secular Quranism, and you have secular Quranism with American characteristics, with British characteristics, with French German, whatever. Just assume that okay, that all the NATO members, embrace secular Quranism with their own national characteristics, and I suppose you would call them emirates, right? And an emir is lower in status than the caliphate, and I guess the caliph would be like the big shot of all the Islamic republics. I think that's how it works, and I suppose the emirs have to say they have to say, okay, it's you. You're the I don't know the nuclear superpower of all the theocracies, the Islamic theocracies. So I think that would be how it works. And obviously, if you're Muslim and you're the most powerful militarily, economically, the most powerful one, then I guess you get to be called the caliphate. I think that's how it works. Okay, so I'll read to you. The harem as a social and political institution. As the Sultan became increasingly sedentary in the palace, his family members, previously dispersed between provincial capitals, were eventually relieved of their public duties and gathered in the imperial capital. The official move of members of the Ottoman dynasty to the harem at top Topkapi Palace in the 16th century gradually transformed the imperial harem into a well-organized, hierarchical, and institutionalized social and political structure with rigid protocols and training. At the end of the 16th century, except for the Sultan himself, no member of the royal family, male or female, left the capital. Both children and mothers were permanent occupants of the inner world of the palace. The harem was the ultimate symbol of the Sultan's power. His ownership of women, mostly slaves, was a sign of wealth, power, and sexual prowess. The emphasis on seclusion of the harem and dynastic life from the public gaze also communicated his power, as only those closest to him had the privilege to interact with him privately. The only person in the harem who had access to public only with ritual and retinue appropriate to his status was the Valid Sultan. The institution was introduced in Turkish society with the adoption of Islam under the influence of the Arab Caliphate, which the Ottomans emulated. To ensure the obedience of the women, many of them were brought and kept into slavery. However, not all members of the harem were slaves. The main wives, especially those taken into marriage to consolidate personal and dynastic alliances, were free women. This was the exception, not the rule. The imperial harem also served as a parallel institution to the Sultan's household of male servants. The women were provided with an education roughly equal to that provided to male pages. At the end of their respective educations, the men and women would be married off to one another and graduated from the palace to occupy administrative posts in the empire's provinces. There was a distinct hierarchical structure within the harem, founded on family-based relationships among the women. The family was not limited to blood connections, but included the whole royal household, consisting mainly of slaves for the majority. Following the evolution of the imperial harem from the 16th century onward shows that while the organizational structure of the harem was never static and the numbers and roles of servants within the palace was constantly fluid, there was a strong sense of institutional continuity and unchangingly rigid hierarchies within the harem. The Valid Sultan the Sultan's mother held power over the harem, and this power sometimes extended over society. She was the custodian of imperial power and worked to consolidate both the son's rule and continuation of the dynasty. She resided at the top of the female hierarchy. Next in line were the Sultan's daughters, who were also called sultans. These princesses were admired and could rival their father for popularity and recognition. I guess it was the old form of the Ottoman form of celebrity culture. They were also useful for the political alliances that their marriages secured for the empire. These women were known throughout the empire and had an important reputation to uphold. Consequently, only a small fraction of the women in the harem actually engaged in sexual relations with the Sultan, as most were destined to marry members of the Ottoman political elite, or else to continue service to the Valid Sultan. Within the harem, the Valid Sultan and the Sultan's favorite concubine or concubines were more effectively able to create factional support for themselves or their sons, creating a bridge between the palace and the outside world. Harem politics revolved around the establishment of matrilineal legacies and finding ways to garner alliances and support for the greater Ottoman world outside of the harem walls. Well, this sounds terrible. No wonder the Ottoman Empire fell. They should have had competitive examinations for the civil service, so, like what the Chinese had, though I'm afraid the Chinese also broke their rules and then were invaded by the Europeans and the Chinese, and things didn't go well for them for quite a while before they finally corrected themselves. So it's going to be painful if you really let everything go to pieces. So I'm just saying, have a think about not letting everything fall to pieces and doing something about it now while you still can. That's all I'm trying to tell you, people. Not that you seem to care. So I'm not. Okay, so basically, Abdul Hamid is just going on in a rather boring way about, oh, I can't even be bothered to read it really, but it's really boring. He mentions Palestine, and you go, oh, how boring, and oh dear, the Muslims are feeling the heat and being oppressed and being discriminated against. And I don't think a lot of the other Muslims agree with him, and they'll be laughing at him for his obsession with the caliphate, which is over and out. And they okay, just supposing all of the West adopt my idea and become, secular Quranist theocracies, then obviously the most powerful superpower will be the caliphate, right? And I guess in all probability would be America. Or, well, I mean, if Russia decided to adopt secular Quranism with Russian characteristics, I mean, the caliphate could be Russia. Is it possible to have two caliphates coexisting at the same time? Or is it sort of like, the Pope, you can only have one Pope in existence, So I'm not sure about that. Maybe someone learned in Islamic history can tell me that. Or I could consult. Yeah. Okay. I think you can only have one caliphate. Caliphate is an institutional public office under the leadership of an Islamic steward with the title of caliph, a person considered a political religious successor to the Islamic prophet Muhammad and the leader of the entire Muslim world Ummah. Okay, so that is pretty conclusive. You can only have one caliph in existence in the world. So basically, I mean, there have been three major caliphates which succeeded each other: the Rashidun Caliphate, which is the rightly guided caliphs, and then after that, the Umayyad Caliphate and the Abbasid Caliphate. So the Umayyad Caliphate is let me just check where it is. They conquered Ifriqiya. What was it called? It's Algeria and Tripoli, Traxoxiana, which is Central Asia, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Sindh, which is where is it? It's northwest of India, and Maghreb, which is northwest Africa, and Hispania, which is Spain. Okay, so the Umayyad Caliphate. So it would be Granada. That beautiful palace whose name actually escapes me, which I have visited Alhambra. Yes. So after that, okay, so we're talking about the Rashidun Caliphate, the Umayyad Caliphate, and the Abbasid Caliphate. And where is it? So the Abbasid Caliphate is in Iraq, Baghdad, and what were the Persians called? Weren't they called something? Um, um, I'm a little curious about. So what were the Iranians called? Persian Empire, Islam, Muslim conquest of Persia. Oh, it was carried out by the Rashidun Caliphate. So that happened pretty early because it was, the rightly guided caliphs who were the successors to Muhammad, and they were Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali. So there were four rightly guided caliphs, being Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali. Okay. But now we know that there can only be one caliph in the world at the same time. Because he would be leader of the Ummah. So we were talking about the Rashidun Caliphate, the Umayyad Caliphate, the Abbasid Caliphate, and then finally the Ottoman Empire. And then it says throughout the history of Islam, a few other Muslim states, almost all hereditary monarchies, such as the Mamluk Sultanate in Cairo and the Ayyubid Caliphate, had claimed to be caliphates, but obviously not recognized. So basically, I'm saying, let's just imagine. Okay, let's imagine global secular Quranism. So who's going to be caliph? I mean, let's say, well, China goes, secular Quranism, so does Russia, and so does America. Well, it should be quite interesting. I mean, how are they going to decide? I have a way of working it out. But by voting, of course, I'm not saying, they're going to fight each other. Like, I'm going to fight you to be caliph, because that would be silly and un-Islamic. So that's all I want to say on the question of the khilafah, which is the bee in a bonnet of Hizb ut-Tahrir, almost to the exclusion of everything else. I mean, obviously, they're mostly Pakistanis, and the Pakistanis are, well, they basically don't want Pakistan to have elections, and they want a caliph. And they're really vague about it, saying, "Oh, it has no borders," and that's just stupid, because obviously, historically, there are all these caliphates that I've just mentioned to you, and obviously, these empires would have borders. So when Hizb ut-Tahrir just say, "Well, our sort of dream caliphate doesn't have borders," they're just being silly. And I mean, obviously, within the caliphate that you're talking about, you're talking about the Ottoman Empire, then obviously within the Ottoman Empire, there won't be any borders against, other subjects of the Ottoman Emperor. But I'm afraid the reality of how the world, well, the reality of the way of the world is that every nation would have borders, and they'd have to defend them and fight them and extend them or whatever. But to say that there are, that the caliphate has no borders is just silly. And so we have to take what his Tahrir say with a pinch of salt. And back to the question of how we're going to decide, assuming everybody goes global secular Quranism. So who's going to be caliph? And I'm saying my neat little solution to this would be they all kind of have a little vote about um, who's going to be caliph, and will be done under the rules of the papal conclave, and we'll just lock them up in the Sistine Chapel and say, look, you guys, you better decide, which of you is going to be caliph, and then when you've got a vote, well, let us know, and then we'll announce it to the world, and that's how it's going to be done. There will be no war between China and Russia and America to decide who's going to be, leader of the Ummah. Okay? So the other thing about, and this is another tweet by a Muslim, and this one is by Hamza Sortis, whatever, I can't pronounce his name properly. And he talks about these annoying. I thought I retweeted it, but I haven't. I didn't retweet it because it's basically saying, come to our course and we'll tell you how to deal with all these people who are diluting Islamic principles, and it's basically about dawah and all that, and it's going to be in Manchester, London, and Birmingham in March and April, and talking about a transformative Ramadan, attending the iftar dinners, and okay. So he's saying, buy our books and our courses. We're training thousands of Muslims, and these are our concerns. I thought there was something else. I might not be looking at the right tweet, perhaps. Oh, I can't find it. But anyway, he was just saying, he gave a list of problems facing Muslims. No, I can't find it. Sorry about that. I'll have another look. Oh yes, here we are. So it goes, we're under attack. What's our strategy? In your children's schools, godless ideologies are being aggressively pushed. In your workplace, there is immense pressure to conform to the prevailing liberal worldview. At university, denying God and rejecting religion prevails. Everywhere you look, whether it is academic settings, on social media, at a grassroots level, or in the political domain, Muslims are under ideological attack. intellectual activists with a proper Dawa training can help put a stop to this. They are empowered to share and defend Islam intellectually, destroy doubts, and overcome those forces to bring us victory. It is our goal at Sapiens Institute to empower Duat as such, and we want you to join us in our mission. If you haven't heard already, we're hosting 3 fundraising dinners: the Victory, Your Role in Dawa, and the Rise of Islam in Manchester, London, and Birmingham. This event will empower Muslims like you to share and defend Islam intellectually and help you be part of the inevitable victory promised by Allah. You'll also learn more about Sapiens Institute and how you can share the immense reward in developing thousands of callers to Islam, inshallah. Well, I've already responded to his tweet and, talked about secular Iran. No, I haven't actually. I haven't talked about secular Quranism. Obviously, I'll have to say something about this after I finish talking to you people. But I think these people have already heard of secular Quranism. If I can... Okay. Sapiens Institute, Hamza A. Saltziz, I think is his name. And I'll be tweeting at him and impressing upon him the virtues of secular Quranism, and I won't forget. And now I will talk to the chat. I see some fighting going on in the chat. Nothing interesting, not even anything about harems and things. Okay, sport, really boring. Watching Claire and Dubit at the same time. Stephen James, it's giving the impression that he's been up and down Pakistan, but we know he hasn't, and nobody believed him for a single minute. So I think we've settled it about, how we're going to decide who's going to be the caliphate when the world goes global with secular Quranism. So with that happy thought, I will now leave you. Thank you for your attention and speak to you again before too long.